Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the great pleasure of being joined by my friend, Caden Spruill. He is a fellow producer at Sports Radio 810 WHB, and in this video, we're going to talk all about wide receiver Xavier Worthy. So, Caden, one of the things that is unfortunate about the Chiefs wide receiver room is it's been very inconsistent over the past couple of years, whether it's been due to lack of talent, whether it's been due to injuries. You've already seen so far at camp, guys like Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy have both dealt with minor injuries. And another thing that is kind of looming over the entire room is that Rashee Rice is probably going to be suspended to start the 2025 season. And so that begs the question, could Xavier Worthy break out and truly take over as the Chiefs' number one wide receiver? I want to get your thoughts on that.
I definitely believe so. When you look at I think when you compare, I think often him and Rashee get compared just because they were both rookies in an offense and they were looked at as the guy, early on. You look at Rashee, his, rookie season, he was looked at as the guy. And then with Rashee going down last year, Xavier was looked at as the guy. But I definitely can see that because when you look at Rashee, at the beginning of last year, he was looking like a guy that could be, break out as a top 5 wide receiver in the league maybe. He was on pace for like 100-plus catches, 1,000-yard season. So I don't see any reason why Xavier can't do that exact same thing. We saw towards the end of the season last year, he kind of took on that role as, as we said, the guy. He was Pat's number one target and then Travis right behind him. So I definitely don't see any reason why he can't. I think him and Pat's chemistry on the deep ball is even better now too. We saw them start to kind of hit on those as well too. So there's a lot of components to why I think that he can do that for sure.
When last year he had 59 catches for 638 yards and 6 touchdowns receiving, but as a running back, kind of playing that, I guess Swiss Army knife, he had 104 yards rushing and another 3 touchdowns. He had 9 total touchdowns in his rookie season, and I think that actually led the Chiefs. And if you just saw what he did in the playoffs, he had that crazy catch in the AFC Championship game against the Bills where he somehow came down with it. And that was kind of, the storyline. We even talked about it on, the radio. It was Keon Coleman versus Xavier Worthy. And, Xavier Worthy was the better wide receiver in their rookie season. And, you're looking at a guy that I think has all of the talent and potential to, take over the reins. And outside of Travis Kelce, and I guess Hollywood Brown if he's healthy, who is going to take targets away from him in the first month of the season?
Yeah, I don't really see anybody threatening those. I do like the young wide receiver Jalen Royals. It seems like I know I said Xavier and Rashee get a lot of comparison, but as far as their playing style, it seems that him and Rashee are a lot alike. As far as yards after catch, whenever you look at Jalen Royals at Utah State, he was like tops in the NCAA in yards after catch. So that's what we've seen Rashee work, in the underneath and kind of just take plays and, extend them. And I think Jalen Royals can do that exact same thing for this Chiefs offense. So, he may be somebody that kind of threatens those targets. As you said, Travis can. But Juju hasn't been a large, huge part in the offense, especially with those other guys stepping in. So I don't think there is a whole lot of threat to Xavier taking off this year.
When, we actually talked about Jalen Royals on the channel a couple days ago, kind of just how he's going to have an opportunity with Rashee Rice being suspended to kind of take over for his role because, you mentioned it, they do play a very similar style of football. But I think that when you just look at the guy that has not only a better familiarity with the offense, but he also has that connection built with Patrick Mahomes, I think Xavier Worthy could easily just absolutely feast in that first month, maybe the first month and a half of the season without Rashee Rice. And I really do think that the Chiefs offense is going to have to rely on him because, Travis Kelce, as great as he is, he can't lead the offense, being in his mid-30s. And I think that, Worthy showed last year towards the end of the season, once he actually got, the offense under control, that he could be a main guy. And I expect with a full off season with Patrick Mahomes, another season, with that offense under his belt, I think he could have a massive season.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see Once Rasheed does come back, if he's suspended, which we will likely happen, but once he comes back, how him and Xavier will work together. We didn't really get to we got to see it a couple games, but obviously, like we said, Xavier wasn't in the motion of things yet. He hadn't really understood the offense. He wasn't at his level yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two guys work together and in Hollywood and everybody together. So.
When I actually do want to talk about that, because you did bring up a great point, and we'll do that right after this ad break. This video is sponsored by my wonderful friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, so no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and a new ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow them on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all offseason long. Now, Caden, you posed a great question. How are the Chiefs wide receivers going to fit together? What roles are the different guys going to take? I think that we saw last year before he got hurt, Rashee Rice was on pace for a monster season. And he mostly did it with, those short passes, and just he was phenomenal at yards after the catch. And Patrick Mahomes, for as great as he has been, he hasn't really been as dynamic with the deep ball, and I think that that's something that the Chiefs definitely have to improve on this upcoming season. But I feel like you're probably going to see Rashee Rice take the same role that he did before he got injured. I think Xavier Worthy is going to take the top off the defense. They're just going to have him run straight down the field and pull a couple defenders away. And I think Hollywood Brown might work over the middle, but it'll be interesting to see how those two guys end up fighting out for snaps.
Right, and especially when you consider Travis usually works that middle area as well. He usually kind of mans that middle of the field, makes those linebackers work, and chase him around. So, Hollywood, like you said, Hollywood does work the middle as well. Rashid, they all kind of, work that underneath area. But like you said, when we have these speed demons like we have to take the top off the defense. We have to. That's what, whenever the Chiefs were at their very best, that was what they were able to do that. They were able to connect on deep balls to, even when Demarcus Robinson was here, he had some deep balls, So it doesn't have to be Xavier Worthy. It doesn't have to be Rashee Rice, just as long as we're connecting. Just to open up that underneath for Travis and all the other guys. But yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see how their play styles work together.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Chiefs need to at least attempt the deep ball much more than they did last year. And I understand that the injuries kind of made the Chiefs offense a little bit stale. They kind of had to get back to their roots and just quite literally function because they didn't really have anything else. And so they didn't really have that explosiveness, but presuming that everybody stays healthy, you're going to have more talent in that wide receiver room. And so I fully expect them to at least attempt more deep balls and get Xavier Worthy downfield and target him more often because, we saw it over the past couple seasons. Pat really didn't try to go downfield. And if he did, for whatever reason, he was just off. And so hopefully with another offseason with Xavier Worthy, their chemistry continues to grow and they'll connect on more of those. We've actually seen that a lot so far at training camp. That deep ball has looked fantastic. Now, a question that I wanted to ask you, and we're assuming that Rashee Rice is going to be suspended bare minimum 4 games. Do you think that Xavier Worthy could lead the team in receiving?
I think he will. I do. No, I don't. I don't think
Okay.
he will, but I do think he can. I think Rasheed will end up getting those numbers whenever he comes back. Just depending on how many games it is. But I definitely think Xavier has the ability to do that for sure. Like we said, he's started to come along towards the end of the season last year, and with that deep ball threat, that's obviously going to add to your yardage total, and it's just going to help the offense overall. So I definitely think that he does have the ability to do that for sure.
I definitely agree with you. I do think Rashee Rice is probably going to lead the team in receiving, but at the same time, I do think Xavier Worthy could get to 1,000 yards. And, to have two wide receivers break the 1,000-yard total, like, this offense is going to be better than it's been in the past couple seasons. And as a Chiefs fan, that's literally the best possible outcome. So, Caden, I think that we're both very high on Xavier Worthy and think that he could have a very good 2025 season. I think that's really all we have for this video. My final question for you is, where can the people find your stuff?
You can find me on Sports Radio 810 WHB in the pocket. We do weekly shows, and I'll have that posted on my X. You can follow me on X at Real Caden. I'll let everybody know when we have our shows, and you guys can tune in. But you can find me on there.
And guys, all of that stuff will be posted in the link in the description. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.